Record this.
Oh,
'Cause I wanted to hear some of your stories. So I brought that in so I could record this conversation. You don't mind, do you?
no, I don't
Okay,
mind.
good.
In fact, you know what, John, I had so much experience. See, I'm barber for, you're not recording that right now, are you?
I am.
No, but you should wait okay, well, we were talking about the chicken coops like that, right?
Right, the farm, so.
Okay, the farm. So anyway, I grew up in the farm till I was 14 and a half years old. And my dad used to fix exactly what you're thinking of doing there, but I think his was probably 10 by 15 or something like that.
Right.
And at the nighttime, that's why, he used to fix a place where the chickens could lay eggs too.
Right, the coop, the inside.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So anyway, I think he had it divided. It's been a long time. So during the night, he used to get all the chickens in the deal there and close the doors.
Right.
Because the coyotes used to come over and try to get to him.
Oh, yeah.
So he even built a fence around that chicken coop. Not real close, because once in a while he would let the chickens go out, you know.
Yeah.
But the coyote used to come during the night and they would try to get over that fence.
Yeah, the chickens, they know where they live. They'll come back and everything. The roosters would sometimes run into the woods, but they would always come back. So
Yeah.
I thought I was building a thing, and then the coyotes heard them, and they came in, they ate them. So I felt bad. I saw all the feathers. You know, I saw the feathers left over and everything. So I was mad.
So that's the reason you have to have a fence.
Right.
Because the coyotes come to it, especially at nighttime.
But I wanted to ask you a question too about what you were telling me on the phone. You said that you'll tell me more about it, but you said that you guys had to stay at this old house. You had a house that you used for storing like fruit or grain and stuff that you grew, and then you had to live in that house. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Can you tell us that story about how you had to go back and stay in that house that was used for storage?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, let me tell you what happened here. There was a real old house, and it was built out of adobe.
Okay.
You know, they used to make. Have you ever seen an adobe brick?
I have. Right.
So anyway, it was a pretty nice looking house, but the trouble is, it was real old.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still livable. So when my mother and dad they got married, they used to live with Uncle Frank across the river, because that house was haunted. There was ghosts in there. Well, they never told me anything about it. But anyway, my mother and dad my dad lived with Uncle Frank for about I don't know how many years. But when Albert, my brother, was 15, and Betty and Minnie, they had 3 kids. They came to California because my father had 2 sisters that used to live in California, and they used to come home and visit each other. So anyway, he got to the point, figured out, because being a farmer is a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
So he decided to move to California and see if he could get a job, and he got a job with Canal Lumber. Now that was way back in the early 20s. So anyway, he was working there with Canal Lumber, and then the Depression started hitting. So I was 2 years old. And then my dad decided to go back to New Mexico.
So he still owned that land out there? He had to pay taxes on that, or that was...
My grandfather owned that land, 600 acres. And what happened there was 3 brothers that came from Spain.
Right.
And they came there when the Spaniards first started coming, they used to settle in Florida.
Right.
But then they went around the Gulf of Mexico and came up the Gulf of Mexico right close to where El Paso is now.
Right.
And so El Paso was a small little town, and those 3 brothers, Cordovas, they came there and they were looking for jobs.
Right.
And they found out, somebody told them that there was a silver mine that had just opened in there in New Mexico. So they went back there and they got a job, all 3 of them. And they started working. But 2 of the brothers wanted to go up farther north to Santa Fe, because they found out that they heard that there was some gold mines up there. And instead of just working for the silver mine, they wanted to go out there where there was gold. So two of the brothers left, and one of the brothers remained there in Mimbres. And then just about that time, the government passed a law that you could homestead so many properties if you would convert them to farms and stuff like that. So they could apply for 10 acres of land. And then if you start enlarging, you can keep on adding. So that's why they end up with all that acreage. One brother. But then...
What was his name?
Huh?
What was his name?
Oh, gee, I don't know. But Robert, my nephew, he did the study about it.
Right.
There was 3 brothers, and then 2 of the brothers went up north, and you know what? There was no cars there. They had to go on horseback. So they stayed there in New Mexico until the silver mine, until they got enough money to buy a horse. And they bought a couple of horses and a mule, and they start going up the river all the way up to Santa Fe. And those brothers never came back.
Right.
They settled up there, and they never saw each other again. Okay, so the brother that remained here, he got married and started raising a family.
Where did he meet his wife?
Huh?
Where did he meet his wife?
There in New Mexico.
She was Spanish, right?
No, she was Spanish, but part Indian.
Indian, right, right.
Because see, way back then, when the Spaniards first came here
Right.
to Mexico, most of the there was no women. They used to come. It was mostly men.
Yeah, like the military kind.
Like when Columbus came over.
Right, it's like the military kind of.
Well, that was the military. He wanted to travel, so the Spanish government furnished a ship.
Right.
And he recruited a lot of men to come with him.
Right.
So when they landed in New Mexico, it was just men.
Right.
And even when the Pilgrims first came over here, it was mostly men. So what they started doing, they started marrying Indian women, and that's where it started mixing. That's why I'm part Indian.
Yep.
So anyway, one of the Cordova started homesteading some property.
So there's just one brother and his wife at that area.
Well, probably before that, he didn't even have a wife.
Right. But the other brothers went to Santa Fe,
Yeah,
and then they lost touch. So at that point, there's only one brother.
They remained down here.
And he had and he got to
But
have
then
600.
he got married. He got
Yep.
married, and he had a son, and then he had that son had another son, and then the third was my grandfather,
And what was your grandfather's name?
Alvino.
Alvino.
Like me, my name is Alvin, because but I dropped the O.
I thought your first name was Frankie or Francisco.
He sure was. Let me tell you what they do. See, when I was born there in Ball Heights, the doctor came over and delivered me, you know, and my mother gave it the name of Alvino.
This is already done.
Alvino Cordova.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Okay, for that.
We'll be there in 1 minute. He's telling a story on camera.
Hey, but then you better turn that off, because you know what?
I don't want to break the flow. You got a good flow going on. You want to eat? Are you hungry? You want to eat right now?
Let's eat, then we'll come back and you come to my room.
All right, okay.
And I'll tell you the whole
All
story.
right. I'll pause the camera then.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you go.
Holy mackerel, thank you very much.
You are welcome. So when you cut up a deer, you'll have like a bunch of different size, like steaks and everything, and then you hang them from like a tree, you were saying, and let them dry out there in the sun.
Now, what was that?
After you cut up the deer, you're gonna have a bunch of different steaks, like different sizes, right? But they'll be like in strips, you were saying, right?
But after you kill the deer, certain parts of the deer my mother used to fix for different types of recipes. But most of the meat, we couldn't eat all that meat the raw way, so that's the reason she used to. Hey, thank you very much, Christopher.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you much. I'll wait a few minutes on that. Anyway, and then what was left, she used to cut on strips.
Right.
And hang out to dry. And once it dry, it lasts for a long time. See, you guys don't know, but way back then, when I was born and up to 1939, very few people had refrigerators. In New Mexico, they didn't know what, we didn't have no electricity. We used to have those lamps, you know, kerosene lamps.
Right.
So anyway, people don't know that, but there was a lot of, we weren't poor, but there wasn't equipment. I mean, it wasn't, the United States, they really didn't start doing a lot of things until just before the war, World War II.
Right.
And then even cars, there was a shortage of cars. And then during the war, you could not buy a new car. They were making everything for the army. Trucks, you know, and tanks and all that baloney, you see. So, but after the war, those companies, so they stopped building cars again.
Right.
And then they stopped building refrigerators and they did a lot of different things.
Before refrigerators, what would you do to keep all your stuff cold?
Before the refrigerators?
Yeah.
We used to keep everything not cold. Hell no, we didn't know what cold was.
Preserve it, you know?
There was no ice or anything.
Right, no ice.
Anyway, my mother used to cook stuff that we would eat. It was for breakfast. It was it.
Right.
So you didn't need a refrigerator.
Right, right.
We had chickens. They used to lay eggs. We used to have fresh eggs every day.
But remember how you were saying how you guys would have a harvest, a fruit or corn or something like that, and then you would put it into the house?
Oh, we
The
had
adobe house?
We had a storage house.
Right.
Well, let me tell you, it's a long story, shit. When I was 2 years old, we moved back to New Mexico.
Yeah.
My dad and mother and my three brothers, my brothers, Albert, and my two sisters, they were born there in New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And then they came to California, and while my dad was working here, that's when I was born.
Right.
When I was 2 years old, my dad lost his job, so we went back to New Mexico. Okay, so at that time, when they first came to California, about after my dad and mother got married, they stayed living with my Uncle Frank.
Uh-huh.
Because my Uncle Frank had a pretty nice house, and he had a few acres, not too many. Mostly fruit that he used to grow. And anyway, he used to live by himself. So my mother and dad used to live with him. And that's what they had, Albert and Betty and the house there. But then, when they came to California, Uncle Frank got married. So then when my family moved back to New Mexico, we didn't have no goddamn place to stay. So we stayed in this house that was haunted. Now, it was still livable because it was built of those adobes I was telling you about. They used to make those adobes out of clay, and then inside they used to make they had a special deal that they used to, it looked like that wall. They used to cover that deal, so the walls inside would look beautiful.
Yeah.
It was finished, I don't know what they call that. It was a fine white powder, they used to mix it with water, and then they cover the adobe.
Yeah, they got one on Olvera Street, an adobe house, and it looks just like that. Regular wall, regular
That's the way it was in New Mexico.
Right.
Okay, so we went to that, when we got there to New Mexico, we didn't have no place to stay because my uncle Frank, he got married and he was, so anyway, we didn't want to stay, so my dad decided to stay in this house. And so it was livable. It had a nice floor and everything like that, a fireplace.
And who built that house?
Who
built that adobe house?
It was built many, many years ago.
By someone in the family?
Yeah. Yeah, there was three brothers that came from Spain way back in the early 1700s.
Right.
And they started homesteading some property there. And they were building houses. And there's a lot of houses in New Mexico that was built way back then. But most of them are haunted. You cannot live in them. They got ghosts.